All right.
Hey, do it.
Welcome, Beny Ashburn Jr., to the Mother Tree Network podcast. How are you?
I am good. It's Friday, which is very exciting. It's a little cold in California, but as usual, in about an hour or two, it will be 72 and sunny. So can't complain at all.
Okay, because we are on the East Coast. I'm on the East Coast, and we were having like 29-degree weather this morning when we woke up.
But wasn't it like 80
So,
degrees last weekend or something crazy?
yes, fall is mutable.
Yes,
Fall is mutable.
100%.
And yes, and if you know anything about your astrology or your sun sign or your rising sign, I'm gonna just say you out loud. I am a fall baby,
Uh,
so I'm all right with the mutability. Um, but I have lived in Southern California, and I did love it there. So I wanted to start off the conversation by asking you, what is good? What are you seeing that's good in your life or good in the world? What's
I
good
think
to you?
it's funny you should say that because I was having that conversation with myself last night. So September 1st, I turned 45, and I've committed myself to making this year be about doing all the things that make me happy, not just, having being a boss, running a company, which also makes me happy, but really finding those pieces that with if the business goes away and I stopped and took a look around, am I happy? And in doing that, which surprisingly is very, very hard when you've dedicated yourself to your work and to other people, you never really look internally to see, gut check for yourself. So the way I've been doing that is I take moments and I just pray. And, I could be anywhere driving in my car or cooking dinner or just sitting in my house. And I'm like, all right, let me pray because I'm feeling like a negativity come over me. And I know today was a good day, but all I can think about are all the things that didn't go right instead of thinking about all the things that went so well. And I think right now, we have a new leadership team that has come on to assist us in our business, and it has lifted the weight off of me and my business partner Tio. And we can't be everything. We can't be visionaries. We can't be the bosses. We can't be creatives. We can't be salespeople. Like you just need help. So I'm grateful today for the future of where our business is going and knowing that this weight is slowly lifting off of the both of us day by day so that I can get back to self. Because for
Mm.
7 years, this is all that I've done. And for 7 years, sacrifices have been made. And I think it's time to like get back to Beny a little bit. And so I'm very grateful for the partnership and the support that we've been receiving as of late, even being on this podcast. Like, very rarely do you get an asked to be on a podcast that is not just about your business, but spirituality and healing and health and. So this is right on time. Apparently, I needed
Mm.
this just as much as you wanted to have me. So I am grateful for that.
Well, thank you for saying yes.
Of course.
And you said, and there was so much in your conversation, so I want to go back to prayer.
Okay.
Um, Tell me when you pray. Tell me a little bit more about like how you pray.
So I've never been a person who prayed. It's funny. I used to be the person, most of my friends are extremely spiritual. And when we have like girls' dinners or whatever, everybody's like, all right, let's pray before we eat. Or, oh, girl, let's have a moment and pray. And I'm always like, oh my God, why do I have to be forced into this prayer circle? I don't pray. Like, this feels like you're forcing it on me. So it's to say that I pray now is hysterical. And my friends are like, haha, you're a prayer because, and it's my prayers are conversations. I always start with dear God and then I just talk. So there's no
Mhm.
real rhyme or reason. And I say whatever I want to say and I ask and have conversations as if I'm talking to you or anybody else. So prayer to me is just acknowledgement of the higher being and sharing my innermost personal thoughts in the moment to hopefully be heard, to hopefully be provided some guidance or some clarity or some simple grounding to keep me focused and staying positive. I do it mainly to stay positive because slipping into negativity is extremely easy at any given moment.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. I mean, maybe at any moment, but especially now. I
Yes,
just
there's
want
a
to
lot going
acknowledge
on.
yes, here we are in November 2023, intense violence happening in that part of the world we call the Middle East, so much suffering. So I think yes, so I appreciate that you turn to prayer as a way to recover what is good and to get yourself together,
Yeah,
you
basically.
know? And I also want to acknowledge that, yeah, just the conversation, like, dear God, is that what you said? How you begin?
Yeah,
Or,
just like, dear God, just to, because again, I wasn't raised in prayer. So the only thing when you think about prayer is you start with dear God and you end with amen. Whatever else
mm,
happens in the middle is kind of whatever, it's either scripture or, it's whatever you want it to be. But I know that, I do know it starts with dear God and it ends with amen. So I'm going to start with my bookmarks, and then in the
yes,
middle it'll kind of be whatever I need it to be in that particular moment. But I will end it with the amen. So,
yes, yes. Um, I end mine almost always with thank you,
mm,
you
okay.
know, be because somehow, and I don't know if you've ever tried this or any of our listeners have tried this, but actually I I can talk myself in and out of things. And so sometimes the best prayer for me is to write,
Mm,
you know,
mhm,
and to light a candle,
mhm,
put a timer on, and ask. Sometimes I'll say, "Dear heart, what do you want from me?"
mm,
You know, God, your tree, I'm trying
mhm,
to get beyond my ego.
mhm, mhm. I like that, dear heart. Oh, yeah, we should probably talk to our heart more too. That's a really good point. Nobody really
Mm,
talks to the heart, and we should. Jeez.
mm. Yes, 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 yes.
So much to say. It's like, why are you ignoring me?
Well, and there's so much in your background that I'm inspired by or I'm interested in, Benny. So one of the things I said to you was like, I want to talk about the junior because I noticed in your Instagram, you're Beny Ashburn Jr. So can you tell us about that? Like, is that an ancestral recognition or where's that coming from?
It is, I am my father's daughter, literally. So my full name is actually Benevet Robinson. And my dad named me. My dad's name is Ben, my mother's name is Yvette. So Benevet. So I'm literally the sum of two parts, but basically. But my dad's name was Beny Ashburn. And everyone calls me Benny because Benevet is just way too complicated for people to remember. And he was the manager and founder of the group, the Commodores. He was very successful in business, but more importantly, he died when I was very, very young, so I didn't really know him. But the only things I've ever heard about him were very positive, enlightening kind of man, helped everyone, was very supportive, was very grounded, would give you the coat off his back kind of a person. And so I think in saying junior, it's one, carrying the legacy of what he did in business and all the success he had there, because I am creating my own legacy in the beer industry, which is what we'll get into later. But I think calling myself junior also allows me to carry the honor of who he was as a person. He was a great person and very caring. I'd like to believe, I'm that. I mean, I don't think I'm as caring as he was from what I've heard, but I do think there's a lot of giving and a lot of the same similarities in our personalities. So I've been told that he has. So I carry it to carry everything that he was, not just the business and the nepotism of it all, but really to just be Beny Ashburn in the female, form of what he was and who he was. So
Mm,
uh,
mm.
it's kind of an honor to be able to say that and to meet people who knew him, and say that name. People are like floored and like, oh my God, you're his daughter. That's amazing. And I think it's very admirable and very exciting to be a part of what he's created, even in his passing. So
Yeah, to be part of his legacy.
yes,
Mm. And we met because I was at the filming
you
of
were.
Othello,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Othello, there's a film version of the play Othello that features Benny's father.
yes.
And I didn't think it was done in the 60s, right?
It was
With
1968.
Yafa.
Yaphet Kotto was the star. I think it was his first starring role. And, it's funny. I myself don't even know as much about that film as I probably should have. Dad was one of the producers on it, but it was directed by Liz White. Um, and her granddaughter was there, and their family knows a lot more about it than I do. Sadly, when I was very young, and my dad passed, his family disowned me. Believe it or not, there was a lot of money back then. There was a lot of things that were going on back then. So I don't know a lot about my dad's history.
Mm.
And that trip that I met you was really an uncovering of a lot. It was the first time I saw that film in its entirety. It was the first time I met Cher. It was the first time I realized my relationship to Cher Cottage on the Vineyard. To find out those are my great grandparents. I did not know that. Uh,
What?
that was Daddy's grandparents. I know, isn't that crazy?
Oh my goodness. So this was a cottage that would have appeared in the Green Book of the
Yes,
day,
yes.
the guide for African American travelers in Martha's Vineyard saying you need to go to this cottage when you go to Martha's Vineyard.
They were the first in to house blacks back in the time on the vineyard. So
Hmm.
uh, and then that weekend I was in the vineyard. I was staying at the Martin Luther King house, which is that main house right off of the main road. So it kind of felt like I was just living in this history and nostalgia of black excellence and like black culture all weekend. And it's always amazing when you stumble into stuff like that because you're not expecting it, and
Mm.
then it happens and it surrounds you and it's overwhelming, but it's also very delightful at the same time. And I got to meet people like you and your husband, and it was just, I mean, it was great. It was I was very emotional watching that film. When having my dad pass at 3, there are very few moments I've ever got to hear his voice or see him. People don't really think about that. Like back in the day, we didn't have camera phones, and maybe we had the VHS tapes, but who knows where those may or may not be. So watching him on the big screen walk, I've never seen my father walk. It's like, oh my God, like look at how he talks, look how his posture is. Do I do any of those things? Do I make any of those facial expressions? So it was very cool. It was very cool to be able to be a part of that and to see
Was
that.
that your first time in Martha's Vineyard?
No, no, no. I've been there a few times. Dad is also actually buried on the vineyard. But I think coming as a young kid is different than coming now as a grown adult with purpose and a mission to discover and unpack my own history and ancestry. So it was a little different today. I actually had space to take all of it in versus kind of popping in and popping out like I've done over the years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. Um, I don't know because you're a little younger than me. But do you know B.B. Moore Campbell, the
I know
novelist?
yeah, I know the name.
Yeah. So she wrote a book called Brothers and Sisters.
Hmm.
And the reason why I brought her up is because I remember she was on a panel long time ago, and she was talking about she was planning to go to Martha's Vineyard. But she was from LA. And I
Hmm.
know at the start of the show we talked about, LA and Southern California. And so there's a whole different um, there's a history on the east and in some place like Martha's Vineyard that black people who live in other places, if you haven't been there, you physically have to go
Yeah,
and
it's a feeling.
make some space, you know?
Definitely. Definitely. It is. it is a world. This is the first time I've gone during the busy season.
Mm,
And it was like, I'm like, is this what the world would be like if there were no white people and we all just lived in this euphoria of, is this what Wakanda would be if we, and it's not to exclude anyone,
mhm,
because that's not really what it's about. It's just this feeling of everyone is not only the same, they're in the same headspace, they're at the same level,
mhm,
they want the same things. And
mhm,
that's rare for Black people to be in a
mhm,
moment in time where everybody's thinking the exact same thing and wants the
mhm,
same thing, and there's safety everywhere
mhm,
and community everywhere. And you can walk on someone's porch and just walk into their house, sit down and have a cup. I mean, that's what it used to be like, right?
mhm,
When
mhm,
we've never been able to experience that. I grew up in New York City. I mean, no, you could not walk into someone's house. You lock your doors. You never. There's never been a moment where I've lived a life where I can't lock. I don't have to lock my door, and I
mhm,
just feel safe all the time. And Martha's Vineyard gives you that very comforting feeling while also feeling connected and seeing yourself everywhere. And that is
mhm.
a hard thing to find. And even if only for a week or 2 weeks, I think every Black person in the world should just be able to feel that one time and be inspired by what we could be if we just worked together.
Mm, mm, mm.
So yeah.
Yeah. It was one of the things that struck me, and it's one of the things that made me come back, keep coming back every summer, was for that experience of safety, of hospitality, um, and there's a relaxation. I guess that comes from safety.
Yeah.
It's like a lowering of the guard and of the stress.
Yeah.
And the longer you stay, the more days on the island. The it's just like the more and more.
Want to leave. Yeah,
I
you
don't.
really don't. You almost cry when you leave. You're like, oh God, I don't want to leave this place.
Yes,
I don't want to
yes.
leave here. Like, I just don't want to leave here. So yeah,
So you grew up in New York?
I did. I grew up in Harlem.
Did you? Okay. All right. Yep. So I grew
LA.
up in the Bronx.
Okay, nice.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about speaking of Black spaces, Harlem, Martha's Vineyard. Let's talk about Spelman, because I know in your bio, you are the dope CEO, and we're going to get there. But you mentioned being a Spelman alum.
I am.
And yes, so and that's obviously important to you because in a short bio you can only mention so many things. So tell me, what was that like for you to go to a predominantly Black women's college?
So I've always gone to private school. And growing up in New York, I went to high school at a very small private school on 88th Street in Central Park West. Before that, I was like a Montessori kid. So I think going to Spelman, one, I'll be honest, the only reason I went to Spelman is because of A Different World. Like literally, I could say the show A Different World probably, because I think Spelman was one of like the only, I was like, I'm just gonna go there. Like I don't understand. Why would I apply anywhere else? I'm just gonna go to Spelman, no big deal. Because I want to live like they do on A Different World, and I want to have a Dwayne Wayne, and I want to I want to be Denise, and I want to do all these things because they came from the Cosbys, so this is what life is going to be. But in my private school in New York, it wasn't a lot of Black kids at all. So Spelman was also the place for the Black girls who went to school with white kids and were the Oreos, grew up as the Oreos of the world. And for those who don't know, Oreo is Black on the outside, white on the inside. You got to live that life to understand how that really felt and what that meant. And when you go to Spelman, it was like all these young women who, just like you, went to private school, predominantly with white kids, and then went to Spelman, all female Black school, and found their, sisters, their sisterhood. And it was fun. I loved it. I think to be honest, I felt more in love with the city of Atlanta than I did necessarily with Spelman. I think my relationships with my fellow Spelmanites and my Morehouse men are relationships and friendships I still have to this day. It is a community of amazing Black men and women that stick with you forever. But the city of Atlanta is like the co-starring character when you go to a place like Spelman or Morehouse, because the city of Atlanta is also very vibrant with Black culture and just Black excellence. And it just blew my mind that I went from this world of just everything white to now everything Black, and they got me. They understood me. And I think saying that I went to Spelman, is kind of like putting a stamp in the ground. Like, I did this. I'm part of this community of strong Black women that can literally do anything, because we are taught when we go to HBCUs that there is absolutely nothing you can't do. And so here I am, the CEO of a beer company, because there's literally nothing I can't do, because that's how I was taught. That's how I was told.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is so interesting, because I really encouraged my daughter to apply to Spelman,
Mm-hmm.
and she went to a predominantly white high school, private
Mm-hmm.
Quaker school. And one of the things that she said was she was worried that she wouldn't be Black enough. And I said to her, I'm sure there's plenty of girls just like you,
So
just
many
like you at
girls.
Spelman.
So of all the HBCUs, Spelman is definitely the place where she is not alone, for sure.
Right. But
A
Spelman
thousand.
is also super hard to get into.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I got in
Spelman is,
provision, so I don't even. I was lucky because I just got in. But it is hard to get into, for sure.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, yeah, yeah. So that's beautiful that your experience there led you to be in the headspace of there's nothing I can't do.
Yeah, for sure.
So so let's get to the dope CEO. Let's
Yeah.
get to the dope CEO. So why beer?
I ask myself that same question all the time. So beer, it's not beer, right? When you say beer, you think
Mm.
Heineken, you think Corona, you think, Budweiser.
IPAs.
Yeah, no, or no, most people, so IPAs is craft, and craft is
Yeah.
what I'm in. But when you say beer, the average person just goes to what we know. And what we know is the most marketed, cheapest beer in the market, which again is the Budweiser, the Heinekens, the Coronas, whatever. That's what we know when we think about beer, the Budweiser, Super Bowl commercials and stuff like that. What we are is we're in the craft beer space, which is a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more innovative, a little bit more creative.
And your beer is great. I've had your beer, by the way. It
Very
is
good.
well crafted.
Yes, it's well crafted, and craft is also it's a subculture too, right? Like, it's when I first my business partner first introduced me to the culture of craft. I didn't necessarily fall in love with just the products. I wasn't really a big beer drinker 7, 8 years ago. I fell in love with the community and all that was happening around craft beer. When you go to a brewery, there are people there with their families, they're hanging out, they're playing games. It's not an abusive space when it comes
Mhm,
to alcohol. It's not like drinking tequila, you're not getting necessarily drunk. I mean, yes, mind you, there are some people that are there getting drunk, but it's more about savoring the quality of what you're drinking. And the varieties of craft are so complex, and there's something for everyone. It's not just the one. If you don't
mhm,
like a stout, you can have a tart ale. If you don't like a tart ale, you can have a hazy. If you like a hazy, you can have a pilsner or an Italian pilsner. I mean, it's like endless opportunities to find the space that you feel the most comfortable in. I think that the reason we were able to start our business is because if that's the foundation of what craft and craft beer and craft beer culture is about, why wasn't it diverse? Why wasn't it diverse? If it's a very welcoming space for everyone, you walk into breweries and you only see white people, and you don't
mm,
see yourself, you don't
mm,
hear music that feels like you don't see people that look like you don't see art on the wall that makes you feel comfortable. um, and it's mainly because the people that the ownership in these spaces are white, and they're
mhm,
they're they're just creating space that they know. They're not expected
mhm,
to create something that they don't. So we took it upon ourselves to solve that problem. If it's an ownership thing, then we need to become owners, and we need to create more owners so that we can create more spaces that reflect the actual community that most of these breweries are in. You go to most of these neighborhoods, where do you get the cheapest property? And, poor impoverished neighborhoods. Who live in poor impoverished neighborhoods? Mainly Latinos and Black people. But then you have these breweries kind of right in the middle of it. And they always say, like, the beginning of gentrification is when a brewery pops up or a yoga studio, which is kind of funny, but it's true, because white people
Or artists.
or art, right? White people will go to the moon to go to a brewery. And they do it because it's a safe space. It's a community space. It's a local space. So for me, I fell in love with the culture, and we saw the opportunity to create something that never has been done before. And again, we're not the first Black brewery, to be clear. There are several before us, but we are definitely the loudest and most audacious. And I think me and Tia, my business partner, because of the noise that we made, created this new lane for Black craft beer brands to lead from the front with being Black. It's nothing to hide. It's nothing to be ashamed of. We are a minority in the industry. We are allowed to say we are a Black beer brand. We don't make Black beer. That's not a thing. We don't make beer only for Black people. That's ridiculous. But our culture and our fabric of who we are is Black. So it's gonna feel slightly different. And, for example, you go to a hip hop concert. Most of the people at hip hop concerts are white. I know people think all the time, oh, they're Black. No, it's a mixed art for everyone. And that's what we're creating. We're creating a space in the world of what we call dope. Hence, I'm the dope CEO. If you understand what the word dope means, then you understand the world in which we're building. And then you are also a welcome part of it. And that's for everybody.
So being a CEO, like, so we talked about you, Spellman, and how that led you to believe you could do anything. And here you are, a CEO. What's it like?
I think to this day, I'm still Googling what is a CEO. I mean, if we looked, my job experience before this, I used to produce TV commercials for like 12, 15 years. I used to produce really large scale event activations for like Puma and Warner Brothers. And so my background is definitely marketing, creative advertising. But I'm smart, right? So, also project managed and ran teams and stuff like that. So it's kind of like putting all that together to start a business. But I think if I were to submit my resume for a CEO position, I probably wouldn't have gotten hired, because what is a CEO? It's like we're building a brand, basically building the plane as we're flying it and learning as we go. And I'm learning how to be a CEO in real time. I think being a CEO is being an innovator. It's caring about your business. It's being strategic. It's being creative. It's thinking 10 years ahead and making sure you're grounded in what you want to be for 10 years from now, and partnering with the right people. And I mean, it's kind of endless what a CEO could be. I think I'm kind of redefining it a little bit, because I'm probably not your traditional CEO. I don't think anybody is anymore. I mean, traditional CEOs, it's not quite as stuffy as it used to be. And businesses aren't just one thing anymore. They're not just linear. They're very rounded. And we do merch, we do content, we do events, we do beer, we do a little bit of everything. So I have to know all of that. And then I work with my business partner, and together, we're almost co-CEOs to a certain extent, and we are figuring it out together. And I'm now just getting CEO training to really understand what that means, because when I go in rooms with other CEOs who maybe are more traditional, I don't want to be intimidated by them. I want to know maybe some basics of what they are expecting me to know and what the things I should be saying. But it's hard to sit above all of that when you're also running the day-to-day operations of it, because the CEO is supposed to be a little higher above to focus on the big picture and not
Mhm.
get in the weeds. And when you're a
Mm.
small business, you got to be both. So
Yes.
that's the world. I'm learning how to ladder above the weeds to give me
Yeah.
space to be the dope CEO that I know that I can truly be.
Mhm. I was just thinking about when you said that it was you're 7 years in, you know, and 7 years is, well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank
You know,
you.
how many business don't make it after a year or don't make
Right,
it past 5 years.
right.
So, but 7 years to me is like a tender point because that's a completion cycle. You know, a
Mm,
lot of people take sabbaticals after 7 years if they're in, professions where that can happen because there's something about when you're a founder and
mhm.
you get to that 7th year, there is a certain amount of what we want to call it, fatigue. You've been burning it. You've been visionary, operations, spokesperson.
Understatement. The burn is very real,
Mm,
but you keep doing it. I mean, I tell entrepreneurs all the time, if you do not love this, you will not make it.
mhm,
It is
mhm,
being entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. It is you are gonna fail way more times than you're gonna win. And these aren't the things they tell you that, right? Because when you look at businesses and people owning businesses, you only see the end. You see the success because that's when everybody sees it. You get that phone, like, oh, I can do that. I want to do that. But did you really sit down and ask them the hell that they went through to get it? What did they sacrifice? What did they have to lose? Did they always have money? There's been days where I've been flat broke, negative in my account. And I'm like, well, don't go out the house for a couple of days. I've got food in the house. Figure it out. Do I need anything? Sure don't. My bills are paid. Watch TV and, home office. There's nothing to do, but you get up and you do it every time. And I think I tell everybody, we tell everybody all the time, Crowns and Hops, which I've never said the name of my company is called Crowns and Hops Brewing Company, based out of Inglewood, California. We're the first Black-owned, women-owned, and veteran-owned brewery out of Inglewood, California. And we tell people all the time we're bigger than beer because our mission is to preserve culture, build community, and expand palates. We have a nonprofit organization where we give funding to other Black-owned craft beer brands to help them with some of the struggles and stuff that we've been through. 2 years ago, we did an equity crowdfunding where we welcome the community to invest in Crowns and Hops Brewing Company. We were the first Black-owned brewery to raise over $1 million in equity crowdfunding. We have 1,400 people who have invested in what we are doing. Thank you. And that's 1,400 people who believe not just in a beer brand, but in a brand that's literally changing the fabric of an entire industry. I mean, entire beer industry. Time Magazine cited us as changing the face of beer. Time Magazine. It's like, and that was before we had a single product on shelves. That was just based on our mission and our efforts to create and drive racial equity inside of the industry.
and your great storytelling.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, you know, you
yeah.
made a lot of noise.
We continue to make a lot of noise, but we're founders that put ourselves at the front lines of
Mhm.
the conversation. And in the beginning, we were at the front lines to take the hits and the beatings, and now we're at the front lines to take the wins and continue to take the beatings. But I think people have watched us over the years, and the one thing they can say about me and Tio is we have stuck to our word. We have been consistent. We have shown up for whatever we said we were going to show up for, regardless if we're tired, regardless if it's going to affect us in the long run. If we say we're going to do it, we're going to do it. If we promise our community we're going to deliver, this is what we deliver. And we've been very, honest. When it's been good, it's been good. When it's been bad, we'll tell you it's bad. And I think people appreciate that in the brands that they support. The world's a different place. We're not
Mhm.
just going to buy into capitalism without reason anymore.
Mm,
And I'd like to believe our brand gives you some reason. If you look at the cans, we have a message on all of our cans that tells you our why, gives you a why, and lets you decide. Do you want to
mhm,
support us? You don't have to. One, it's delicious. But here's a reason why you should care, because we care and we want the world to care. So
mhm, mhm. Yeah. I'm thinking about those. Did you say 1,400 investors?
1,400
Yeah.
people.
Well,
Yeah.
because how I first encountered your product was on Martha's Vineyard because one of your investors, as she handed the can to me, she said, "We invest in this Black woman-owned,
Yeah.
veteran-owned brewery in Los Angeles." And I was like, "Really? Okay."
But did you hear the pride
Yeah. Oh,
she
a
had
hundred.
in
We
that?
we invested.
And
It was like a place to put your
yeah,
values.
people come to us all the time. I mean, so our investors are called OGFCs, Original Gangster Founders Crew. And when we meet, they'll be like, "Hey, I'm an OGFC. I'm an OGFC," and it's like they're so excited. They go to a store and they're like, "Look, I know that I invested in that brand. I know that brand. I know those people. I know who they are."
Wow. So I have to tell you, I'm utterly inspired, and you have told me to keep going because my bank account has been up and down on this entrepreneurial journey. So it's so great to hear someone else say that out loud. And, so I just love that. And is there anything, what else do you want to tell us to have us walk away from this, our time with you? What else would you have us walk away with?
I mean, just try to find a space that you just love to be in and that you can grow inside of. I don't know if I wasn't doing this running a beer business, I still would be an entrepreneur. And my friend joked to me the other day. She was like, "You know what? I'm really proud of you for sticking with this," because she's a designer. She's like, "I have a folder with so many logos you've had me create over the years because you've always wanted to have your own biz. You've always wanted to do your own thing." And it's true. And I think I found something that I really love and that I really believe in. And it's your only hope is that you can really live in a world where you find and you're doing something that you love. And it's not easy. It's not hard. I mean, it's not easy. It's very hard to find that. But I do hope that as an entrepreneur, you sit down and ask yourself all the right questions about the business, what it means to you, and why you're doing it. And if you feel like those answers are enough to sustain you for years through the hardships, through the wins, it's something that makes you wake up every day and keep going, then that is the thing that will be your forever. And, I hope that people can find that, because when you
Mm,
do find it, it's really rewarding and it's really fulfilling. And it really feeds your soul in a way that you didn't
mhm,
think your soul could be fed. So um,
mhm.
I will say that. And then shameless plug, please follow us at Crown
Yes.
and Hops. I haven't said Crowns and Hops hardly enough on this interview, but our company again is called Crowns and Hops Brewing Company. You can go follow us on social media, CROWNSANDHOPS. Please follow us. And following us is actually fun. We always have fun stuff to tell on social media. And yeah, we're out there. We're not sold. Our beers are primarily sold in California. So, but you can order our beers at Craft Shack, CRAFT Shack, SHACK.com, and have it delivered directly to you. But if you're in California, we're in Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Disney, SoFi, Dodger Stadium. We're a little bit of everywhere, and we have a beer locator on our website to find us. So
Wow.
yeah.
Well, Craft Shack,
Craft
right?
Jack. Yes.
Definitely. I will be there because I love that. Is it called key lime?
So that is one on Craft Jack you can get. That's our key lime pie tart ale. Quite
Oh,
delicious.
so good.
So good. We have a traditional Pilsner, Atrial Pills. We have a delicious hazy, tropical fruity hazy IPA. BPLB are the dopest. And then we have our Tardell series, which is our key lime pie. And we're about to release our new maple pecan vanilla stout for the holiday season, which is quite delicious.
All right. All right. Well, Beny Ashburn Jr., thank you for being here with us. Thank you for your vision, for that mindset of you can do anything. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, y'all. See you next time.